Okay. Well, with all of our presenters on, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off so we stay timely today. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're faring well this week. We It's such a busy time, and it's interesting to see what one week brings in terms of policy, but also in terms of weather. So last week we got to say, hope you were enjoying the sunshine. Today, I hope you're healthy and warm and going to bear through the snow this weekend. For today's agenda, we have brief comments on what's changing in terms of the landscape related to COVID-19 and business practices. Abby Schwanger joining us again from the Erie County Health Department. Welcome State Senator Theresa Gavarone for updates from Columbus, and then welcome to Mike Edson from the Chef's Garden. In perspective about what is changing, what's happening, there's starting to be conversation of, quote, reopening. So that's actually what led us to think about inviting Mike and the Chef's Garden to today's program. We've been long followers of this Huron-based business. Great story. Also seem to have gracefully handled some challenging times. And I think it's hopefully a case study that as you're thinking about your own reopening of your business, your own connections with your customers, your suppliers, they might have some ideas on how you continue to handle new challenges in a new landscape, because we do know when the economy is reopening and businesses are reopening, things won't look quite the same as before. So you've heard that metaphor a lot of a light switch in Columbus, not just being switched back on. So some things to think about for your business. We did make a couple notes here. It is time to start thinking ahead and planning for your business so that you can be in a good position as we start to get some indications of timeline. As you all know, there's a current stay-at-home order in effect for non-essential businesses and residents until May 1st. That said, when we are coming back to work and coming back to places of business, we do think it's good practice to recommend that you take a look at current safety precautions that are in place for essential businesses and think about applying them to your own business. So namely 6 feet social distancing, Abby and the health department's favorite, right? Routine environmental cleaning. On the employment side, think about what your staffing structure might look like. We're hearing from a lot of businesses this week, essential businesses that maybe took a few years of precautionary closure, coming back to work, and their interactions with employees that they're resuming places of employment after furlough. So know ahead your legal obligations related to FMLA, also the employees' obligations in terms of their commitment to you as an employer in regards to unemployment offers or not. We did link some resources related to that topic in an email briefing to our listserv yesterday, but happy to follow up with anyone on specific questions. Also, the state of Ohio is welcoming your feedback on this timeline for reopening. So we included a picture here of how you can send in some comments on economic recovery and what would be helpful to your business and your employees. So please take a minute to do that. We do think it's really important, and I'm sure the senator will reiterate that point. Other developments from the COVID landscape, the last few weeks we have talked about financial support to businesses during this time. I'm sure many of you have seen in the news the two most popular programs from the federal stimulus bill, the Payroll Protection Program and the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Program, have exhausted their funds as of yesterday. There is talk of reallocating money there, but debate seems to be halted right now in Washington, D.C. So our recommendation to you is to, one, let your representatives know if you have comments on the usefulness of programs like that and others. Keep managing cash flow for those of you that are receiving funds or had expected to and did not. We are happy to see some results from those programs. We got a note from at least one of our local banks, Civista Bank, yesterday that they were able to have 1,300 loans approved for almost $187 million being injected into our economy. So wanted to give a special shout out to all of our accountants, bankers, general advocates of business in the Firelands region. Kudos for the hard work over the last few weeks. And a brief reminder that your voting deadline is approaching, and requesting an absentee ballot does require a few days in advance. So otherwise, from myself and all of the business associations listed at the bottom, we just want to keep encouraging you to stay in touch, to share your stories, check back some of these social pages, because I know a few of our local businesses are getting reopened right now. So new takeout options for everyone to enjoy. Pay attention to that. With that, I'm going to pass things next to Abby Schwanger with the Health Department. I did want to remind everyone in terms of logistics, as you have questions today, there's both a Q&A function at the menu bar of Zoom that you can send in a comment. And there's also a chat function that may be available if you have anything specific or want to share an email with any of the presenters. And Abby, would you like to control slides from your device, or?
Yes, I will. I'll share my screen.
Okay, let me stop share for you.
All right. All right, so my name's Abby. I know several of you have probably been on these presentations for the past couple of weeks or so, and so we're getting to know each other. But I'm the Public Information Officer and the Director of Community Health at the Erie County Health Department. And so I just want to give you a real quick update on what's going on in Erie County right now. We have created this dashboard. If you haven't seen it yet, it's really neat. So it's at coviderieohio.com, and we update that at least twice a day. And so our local case numbers will be updated in the mornings by 9 o'clock, and the Ohio Department of Health numbers are updated in the afternoons by 3 o'clock. You'll notice, if you've been paying attention to the case numbers recently, we have 28 cases now in Erie County. That jumped up about 40% overnight here. And so 27 of those are confirmed cases, and 1 is a probable case. Probable case is a new case definition that recently came out in the past 2 weeks or so. And it was created because of the lack of availability of testing. And so what they're allowing us now to do is to look at individuals who have had contact with somebody who has a confirmed case of COVID-19, and we can determine that they more than likely are infected with COVID-19, and so we're calling that a probable case. And then we follow up with them the same way that we follow up with all of our laboratory confirmed cases. And so we do a full contact investigation and identify their close contacts. They are isolated, the case is isolated, and their close contacts are placed on quarantine for 14 days. And so although the numbers have jumped up and we are seeing an increase in cases locally, you know, I don't want people to get too alarmed by that 40% jump. A lot of that really reflects the expanded testing capacity that we have locally, but I will discuss that a little bit shortly. We still have just 1 death in Erie County, so that's wonderful to see. We've had a total of 10 hospitalizations, and currently there are 6 patients at Firelands Hospital right now from Erie County and the surrounding areas. One question that I get a lot of is testing. So, you know, it's been very well documented through the media, and everybody's aware that there's a lack of testing. It's not just local, it's not just Ohio, it's throughout the entire nation that there is a severe shortage of tests. However, I hear a lot of people saying that, oh, you can only get a test if you're on your deathbed, and that's just not the case. And so we do have testing tiers, and I wanted to share this with people so that they understand, you know, we would love it if we could just give a test to everybody who has symptoms. That'd be fantastic. But we just can't. We don't have that capacity yet. And so what we have to do is we have to prioritize those who are at the greatest risk. And so the tier 1 would be individuals who are admitted to long-term care facilities or the hospital who have symptoms of COVID-19. And then tier 2 would be healthcare workers, first responders who also have symptoms. And then the 3rd tier would be individuals with mild to moderate symptoms who are high risk. So older adults and those. We are currently not testing anybody who's asymptomatic or who's not showing symptoms. We know that that could potentially cause people to have a false sense of security, because just because you were to test negative today doesn't mean that you don't come into contact with somebody tomorrow who's positive, and then, you know, you might be inadvertently spreading it, or, you know, feeling comfortable, when really you need to be aware that anybody can have it at any time. And then individuals that don't have risk factors, who have mild to moderate symptoms, we are not testing. And the reason is there is no treatment currently approved by the FDA for COVID-19. And so if you have mild to moderate symptoms, it really doesn't make any difference. We encourage everybody to stay home always, but particularly if they have symptoms, stay home and treat those symptoms at home. And you know, whether or not they test positive, we ask them to please just assume that they have it, and to protect themselves and others as such. I mentioned a little bit about the increased testing capacity. This is exciting, and it's good and a long time coming here. So Firelands Regional Health System has recently implemented a drive-through testing program. And so the way that that works is anybody, they need to have symptoms, they're going to follow those tiers that I just mentioned earlier. And so testing is still prioritized. However, at least it's more available now. And so those individuals need to get an order from a Firelands physician or a Firelands provider, and then call central scheduling for an appointment, and they can drive through and do the drive-through testing there. And Firelands does go ahead and test those samples right in their facility, and it's a really quick turnaround time, you know, often same day. We've also received some test kits from the state, and those test kits, we can use them to test individuals who are in long-term care facilities and first responders. So again, we're still using that tiered testing system and prioritizing those individuals who are at greatest risk, but the capacity is beginning to expand. And those tests take a little bit longer. We're looking at 3 to 4 days lately from the Ohio Department of Health Laboratory on those results. And everything's on a case-by-case basis. And so, you know, we look at every case individually, whether they're symptomatic and what the situation is, and determine then if they are eligible for testing. And, you know, one thing I really wanted to talk about today also is the cloth face covering. So that's a newer recommendation from the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health, and we of course echo that recommendation. And the purpose behind the cloth face coverings is that it will prevent asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic spread of COVID-19. So I had a really interesting study was shared with us yesterday from the Ohio Department of Health, and this was a study out of China that showed that 44% of the transmissions that occurred happened before the individual became symptomatic. And so people, that's where this comes from. It comes from people who don't know that they're sick, spreading it. And so we know that if you wear a cloth face covering, what that does, even though the holes in the fabric are are larger than the virus, we know that the virus lives in these water droplets that we are constantly exhaling, or they come out when we're speaking, and those are caught in the fabric. And so those water droplets are caught, and it prevents us from accidentally spreading the virus when we don't know that we're sick. And so a couple other numbers that were interesting from the study showed that individuals, the average time that they became infectious was 2.3 days before they showed symptoms. And so average, you know, people are infectious and spreading the disease 2.3 days before they actually become symptomatic. And infectiousness peaks at 0.7 days prior to becoming symptomatic. And so really they're hitting peak infectiousness before they even know that they're sick. And so that's why these cloth face coverings are important. And it's going to be really great for businesses if they could really encourage their staff to wear face masks. There's a lot of different options, and I put a couple up here. We have people, you know, covering with a scarf. There's a lot of people out there that are making their own masks, sewing them. This guy looks like he has a t-shirt sleeve or something around his face, and Justin Bieber here with a bandana. But these are all good options that can be used, and they're going to really help to prevent you from inadvertently spreading the virus to other people. And so we would love it if we saw our businesses really encouraging the use of cloth face coverings. However, they are not of course, a substitute for social distancing. So we need to make sure that we're maintaining those social distances and that, we keep people separated as much as possible. And as we begin to open up more and more businesses, this is, starting hopefully to happen soon. We're going to have to implement. I expect to see the governor soon. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw mandatory mask usage in public. Let's put it that way. So I won't be surprised if this were to become mandatory. So think about that. Think about what that means for your business and planning ahead. And then washing face coverings after each use, that is all that's needed. You can just wash it in the regular washing machine with detergent or soap. So we know that these viruses, they're an envelope virus, so they are contained within a small lipid molecule. And so inside the lipid, once they are exposed to a soap or detergent, that just dissolves right away. And so they're very easy to kill, just regular soap or detergent in your washing machine, and wash them after each use. And any more information, if you want to call, again, this is our information center line. They are staffed now from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week. And so you can call if you have any specific questions. You'll talk directly to a person. And the coviderieohio.com, again, is our dashboard. And so that's a really great resource. We not only keep those numbers up to date, but there's a lot of other great information for businesses, resources, and different information for anybody. So visit that, bookmark it, and keep going back there. And that's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
A couple quick questions I've seen come through. I know you have to run today. Does your dashboard include assisted living and nursing home COVID cases and deaths, as well as just hospital?
So right now, we are not listing those, although they are being reported through the Ohio Department of Health and on the Ohio Department of Health website. And so we can make sure that link is easily linked up so that people can find that information easily. I'll make a note of that to make sure people can find that. We have noticed, however, that they just rolled this out, the reporting of the long-term care facilities, and they haven't been completely accurate in their numbers. And so, for instance, even in Erie County, we reported a case, we've had a positive case in a nursing home facility, and that has not been reported yet through the ODH, although we've issued a press release letting our community know that that's going on and that has happened. But they've not yet put that on their website. And so they're still working out the kinks and the bugs there. And so, hopefully that will become more and more accurate as time goes on. But yeah, we'll link that right up.
Awesome. Thank you, Abby. And good tips. I hope everyone noted her recommendations with employees and masks and what you can do on that front. And I know the health department welcomes your questions. And we did also get a suggestion that the explanation of face coverings was very helpful, and that we should make sure we're letting the public know as well. So I know you guys are quite active on social media. I'd expect to hear some things there if anyone on the line wants to reshare and help spread the word.
Great. Yeah, we're active on Facebook and Instagram, so you can find us there, and we'll definitely continue. We're always posting more and more information, and we'll continue to post more about the masks and everything that's going on.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Everyone keep sending in your questions, and if they need to be directed to the health department, we will follow up with Abby so that we can get you a quick response, but please keep the inquiries coming. Thanks. Next on our agenda, I'd like to pass it to State Senator Theresa Gavarone. Thank you for joining us, Theresa. Just going to share some updates from down south in Columbus, although you might be at home. So.
And I haven't been down south in Columbus since we passed House Bill 197 a couple weeks ago, trying to address a number of different issues that concern people all over the state. But the work hasn't stopped. It's been nonstop, honestly. Working with business owners, employers, workers, and just the impact from across the spectrum, trying to get people through this. Really, my goal has been to listen and pay attention to what's going on and how people are impacted, and work to find solutions to these major issues as we're tackling this virus. issues for our citizens, for the economy. I mean, there's you really realize it when you start having conversations with people all over how it impacts, and how one impact here just trickles to all the reach is huge. So it's important that we're doing what we can to help people through this crisis. As a matter of fact, I just got off the phone right before this meeting with some of my Senate colleagues and the Senate president on some of the really big issues that we're hearing from small businesses, and countless others on things we can do and policies that we could put in place to help with this crisis. So a lot of the big issues I'm hearing with involve unemployment, small business relief. And so I've got a few updates on resources that you might find helpful. Job and Family Services, as you know, is seeing a huge surge in the unemployment numbers. And my office has dealt with a huge increase in the number of constituents that are reaching out, regarding questions on unemployment benefits. I mean, just in recent weeks, we've helped 35 constituents through Job and Family Services with their unemployment issues. So that's a sizable increase for my office. And I know that with the influx of calls and people struggling to get through, they're working to streamline that process for those seeking benefits. So they're building a virtual call center. It's going to feature a more streamlined and effective callback process, and a virtual hold system that's going to allow the caller's place in line to be reserved. And then once they turn in queue, the caller will receive a call from the system and be connected to an available agent. So people aren't sitting on hold for lengthy periods of time or getting kicked off. These improvements are in addition to continuing to add representatives to support the call lines. I know the number employed in unemployment has been expanded drastically to help with this influx of calls. So according to Lieutenant Governor in Wednesday's press conference, this should be live by late next week to help alleviate some of those call times. So that'll be good. So also by the end of next week, individuals will start to receive the additional $600 per week approved by the Federal CARES Act. So hopefully that will help people as well. And the self-employed, the independent contractors, and others who have 1099 tax forms will be able to start applying for unemployment, but they probably won't be seeing the claims paid until May 15th. But at least start, getting those applications in. And certainly I've heard from a lot of the self-employed, especially the barbers and beauticians and those occupations that are just shut down. On May 1, Ohio will address applications for the extra 13 weeks of payments approved by the CARES Act as well. And so if you have questions about eligibility, the best site that we found, or the one that we found most useful, is unemploymenthelp.ohio.gov. I'll repeat that. It's unemploymenthelp.ohio.gov. And it breaks down the frequently asked questions and from those who've already submitted a claim. And it has a lot of really great information on pandemic unemployment insurance for those who are eligible under the CARES Act, and resources for employers. I know I've gone on it and I've flipped through the frequently asked questions, and it really is a good resource. And then there'll be a new Office of Small Business Relief. A few weeks ago, Lieutenant Governor Husted announced the creation of the Office of Small Business Relief within the Department of Development. And this office's main task is identifying and providing direct support to small businesses to help during the current public crisis, and this is them bouncing back from these current events. Their site is businesshelp.ohio.gov. Again, it's businesshelp.ohio.gov, and it's really a great one-stop shop for anything that you might need. And they want to hear from you as they work to find solutions for small businesses. I've actually used this myself. Many of you may not be aware, I'm a small business owner myself. We have a restaurant in Bowling Green, Mr. Spots, and so I've also been looking to these resources for help and found them very informative. So I want to hear from you as well if you have concerns or issues or ideas on ways that we can make things, helpful. We're going to be going back into session here. I don't know exactly the timing. There are some possible dates at the end of this month. I think April 29th is a possible date. I don't know if that's going to go forward yet, but there are some dates that are still listed in May that are possibilities. But I know that we're compiling information from all over all the districts and working on ways to find solutions. So I'm expecting, another package bill to help, kind of similar to House Bill 197, something like that will help address a lot of concerns across the state as well. So I want to hear from you. Feel free to reach out. My office number is 614-466-8060. And everyone's working remotely, so you'll get a call back. And also my email is gavarone@ohiosenate.gov. Please reach out. Would love to have a conversation and just learn what we can do to help ease everyone through this process. But I'm hoping small business owners that we're starting to think about policies or plans to get back in a safe way. As businesses are able to reopen, let's think about what we can do to make sure that we're protecting our employees, the public, and doing things in a way that will be successful. We don't want to see a wave 2, and hopefully we'll be able to get through this. So
thank you, Senator. We had a few questions come in while you were speaking. One asking to link the website that you shared to attendees. We will definitely share the Senator's contact information and the website she referenced for unemployment, both in the chat, but also in a follow-up email. And someone also asked if there was an opportunity for local businesses to be included in the reopening process and guideline formation. Any suggestions on how they would go about sending in feedback or being involved in that process?
If you reach out to my office, we can look at different ways. I'm communicating constantly with Senate leadership, and certainly there are lots of conversations with the governor's office as well. Mm-hmm. So if you reach out to my office or send an email if you have ideas, either way, phone call, email, I want to hear from you. And if you have ideas, certainly we want to make sure we're sharing those.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And the other question we got, I believe you answered in your commentary about when self-employed business owners could be expected to receive unemployment. So we'll also link that information, but thank you. You were spot on with those comments. And then lastly, we heard a comment or question about whether some issues coming up as to employees that are being invited to come back to work, preferring to stay on unemployment. We've heard this now from a few businesses in Erie County. We did link yesterday a recommendation from Bricker and Eckler, an Ohio law firm, as to really what employees are able to access should they have been offered employment. And it was quite clear in a recent press conference with the governor that should you be inviting your employees back to employment, that does technically disqualify them for unemployment benefits in most cases. Of course, tricky thing, I'm sure as business owners, you all are thinking through how to handle that and answer people's personal concerns along with their financial ones when it comes to issues like that, but we'll make sure we link some resources. And I don't know if Senator, if you have any additional comments on that issue.
No, but I can certainly look into that and maybe get back to you, follow up with you, Abby, to share that information. But I'll certainly look in to see if there's any work or anything being looked at in that regard.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. I'd encourage listeners to continue sending in questions, and/or we will link Senator Gavarone's contact information should you want to contact her directly after this program. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
And let me switch now to Mike Ensign with the Chef's Garden. Shifting gears a little bit here. Well, yes and no. The good news is you've both heard from Abby Schwanger and Senator Gavarone today, is we are sort of reframing conversation to be talking about reopening. And with that will be a new business landscape, as it has been for the last several weeks. And one company that we noted in our region making some interesting changes, seemingly handling some challenges with grace, was the Chef's Garden. I'm sure behind the scenes has been challenging for them as well, but always love to see what they're up to over there. What a great business model. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who is essentially going to tell us a little bit about their story and hopefully some takeaways as all of you as business leaders, some food for thought as you're planning the next few weeks for your business. And Mike,
thanks, Abby.
you should be able to share screen, but let me know if you run into any issues.
All right, let me go ahead and I've got two screens here. Can you guys see that screen now?
Not yet.
All right. Do you want to do it from your?
I sure can.
Do it your way.
Okay.
Okay. So my name is Mike Einison. I'm with the Chef's Garden. We're a small family farm in Huron. And for the better part of 40 years, the Joneses have, well, they've been farming for 3 generations on Huron Erie Road. That's the original farm. That was before the Chef's Garden was the Chef's Garden. And it was geared towards commercial farming, selling to grocery stores. And it was successful, but in the 80s, as everything changed and as most things changed, they lost the farm. High interest rates and everything else that was going on. And they ended up with a small piece of land on the corner of Huron Avery Road and Scheid, and that was where they started the Chef's Garden. We can go to the next slide. It started out as a small, just what can we sell locally? What can we do? And then we went to farmers markets. That's the next slide. And they, you know, it was an unbelievable way to go from selling commercially to just setting up farmers markets wherever you could, going into the markets in Cleveland, going into all the different places that they could. Next slide. There's Lee Jones, who now you only see him with a white shirt and bow tie and overalls, but that's some of the original pictures. And what happened is they were at a market in Cleveland, and a chef came up, and Lee had squash laid out, and there were squash blossoms on top to kind of bring your attention to the squash. And the chef wanted to buy the blossoms, which was brand new. Like, who eats squash blossoms? And he explained that squash blossoms are, you know, they're just there for the decoration. I'm selling the blooms. I'm selling the squash. And the lady said, well, I'll give you $1 for each one. And he went back to his dad, and his dad said, well, I don't think we want to sell them. And then when she said, I'll give you $1 for each one, and his dad said, find out how many she wants. So a new business was born, and that became the Chef's Garden. You can switch to the next one. So they spent the beginning years, Abby, there you go. They spent the beginning years just learning. Lee and his dad and his brother Bobby would invite every chef that they could to the farm. Lee would travel all over. Lee would meet chefs. What do you need? What are we not providing? What can we provide to you that you can't get anywhere else? A lot of European chefs said, well, the United States can't do what we get in France. Well, that was a challenge to the Joneses. And they started just anything we could grow for chefs. They were at the forefront of growing microgreens. We grew microgreens long before anybody else did. Everything that we did was based on what do chefs need. You can do the next slide, Abby. This is a look at our website before March. Everything you see here is talking about chefs. Lee has talked to culinary schools. He has gone there to meet chefs. He's gone to every sort of event that you can do. The James Beard Awards, Lee was recognized, the very first farmer ever to be recognized at the James Beard Awards. And Lee would tell you if he was here, he just represents the 170 families. He is our brand, he's the face. And there's a little better picture of how, if you see Lee anywhere right now, he'll look. He'll have on the white shirt, the bow tie, the overalls, most time the hat. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Abby. And we really became, the chef and the farmer relationship was what we talked about. How can we learn from chefs? This is Jose Andres, who right now he was on Ellen DeGeneres yesterday. He's been a huge supporter. He's opened up a vegetarian Chipotle called Beefsteak. And he came here to the farm to announce that to the world on something we do that's called Roots. He's very well known. He goes anytime that he's got some really high-end restaurants, some beautiful restaurants, amazing food. But anytime that there's a need, he'll show up. He's gone to Puerto Rico to feed people, to the fires in California. Now he's trying to feed people in hospitals. If you go to the next slide. So how do you get the word out? There wasn't a whole lot of money for advertising. So the word was chefs telling chefs. And Lee would call people who write for every magazine, every newspaper. He would invite them to the farm. And this is pre-social media, pre-websites and everything like that. And in 2000, the New York Times, right above the fold, the Wednesday edition of the New York Times is the Bible. That was before everything else. You got that. That was the food section. And they talked about what was going on in the food world. And if you got on that, you were great. Click on one slide. There's that story. It was above the fold, and it was 2 full pages in the inside, color shots of the farm. It was amazing, and we just kind of blew up. And I started here in 2000 when that happened, and it was the best kind of marketing you could get. You could kind of flip through these next couple. And since then, we've been in Ohio Magazine. We've been, luckily featured in quite a few other things. You can keep going. Then, of course, television became important. So Food Network, the one that's kind of covered there is Lee meeting Michelle Obama on a set that we did for Restaurant Impossible. The next one, okay, yeah, on that one. The next one is Lee at Iron Chef. And just so you could point him out, I put an arrow there. He's sitting back there. He was a judge on Iron Chef. And he got to do that a couple times. So, we've embraced anything we can do to get the word out where chefs are or where people are listening. You can go to the next one, Abby. And this time now it's social media, and we have a robust social media presence. We have Facebook when it came out. Next slide is more Facebook. We have the Chef's Garden. We have Farmer Lee Jones. We have the Culinary Vegetable Institute, which we bought, which is another whole story, but I won't go into it. But if anybody in Erie County wants to know more about us, please take a look at not even Erie County, anywhere, the Culinary Vegetable Institute, where you can come and do business meetings. We have dinners. We will have dinners. There's a picture of our chef, Jamie. We've done business development. We do team building activities there. And it's also built so chefs can come and visit, and we can learn from the chefs, and the chefs can use the kitchen to do experimentation, to do research and development, and to do menu development. So, and then the next one is our Instagram, Farmer Lee Jones and the Culinary Vegetable Institute. And these are current shots. And if you take a look at that one, the Farmer Lee Jones one, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, that's what we all look like now. I don't have a mask on now, but we're all wearing masks. Everybody, especially in the food processing, we all have masks on. You can go to the next slide, Abby. So we've developed amazing partnerships through the years as well. This is Lee with Chef Charlie Trotter. Chef Trotter, he's from Chicago, and he just was the first chef to really come in here, embrace what we're doing, and say, this is amazing. I'm from the Midwest. I want to use Midwest ingredients. And he sent his chefs to us and said, if you grow it this size, I'll buy it. Or if you do this, I'll buy it. And have you ever thought of doing it that way? And I need something brand new. And he challenged us to become really chef-driven. And he invited Lee to the restaurant numerous times. And here he is probably making fun a little bit of Lee. But he also was great. He introduced us to a lot of other chefs. Next slide, Abby. This is, again, Lee at the restaurant. And, you know, this is just him introducing Lee to other well-known chefs. This is one of the best chefs in the world, a French chef. You can keep flipping. Chef Trotter has passed, but that relationship exists. And they have something now called the Trotter Project. And it's about education. And Chef Trotter really cared not only about the industry, but about students. And he invited students from all over Chicago into his restaurant, talked to them about excellence, talked to them about things. Well, since he passed, we've really been a big part of this, and we have done fundraisers for them. We've invited the best chefs in the world to come to the farm and cook dinner. And matter of fact, we just sent a lot of product to Chicago into some of the schools there so that kids can have better lunches with spinach. And our spinach right now is fantastic, by the way. Lettuces and things like that. That were basically, the kids are coming by, picking them up and taking them home so they can have a little bit better food. You can go to the next one. Mentor is the United States presence for the Bocuse d'Or competition. Bocuse d'Or is the Culinary Olympics. Culinary Olympics happen every 2 years in Lyon, France, and the people driving it now are Chef Thomas Keller and Daniel Boulud, who are some of the best chefs in the world and the best chefs in America. And we have grown for them. We're a sponsor, and that partnership exists now. If you can go to the next slide, so much that we had a dinner here, and Chef Boulud and Keller showed up at the farm. The whole group got around them. We gave them a standing ovation, and we had a dinner here to raise money for that. The reason I'm talking about the partnerships is these partnerships have helped us now in what we're doing next. So if you could go to the next slide. On March 20th, this happened. I don't need to tell you guys, but when your business is 98% restaurants, and as Senator, if you know, 98% of our income, of our revenue just disappeared in the matter of about a week. And New York's a big one for us. Go to the next slide. And when that happened, we knew, all right, it's time to figure out what to do. 98% of our revenue's gone. We still have product growing. We have greenhouses full of product. We're planting tomatoes. We can't just shut down. What do we have to do? Well, now this is what our website looks like. Okay, we have product. We have people who need things. How can we change everything that we do? There's a new audience. There's people at home. First thing Lee did was reach out to chefs and say, look, we've got these partnerships with you. We've done things for you. We need a little help. We sent a lot of chefs boxes. Number one, for their restaurant workers or for their families, and said, could you do us a favor when you open the boxes? Maybe do that on Instagram and show what you're doing. And oh my gosh, the support we got back from our chefs and those relationships has come back 100 times strong. So internally, and I said this to Abby, she said it's a graceful transition. There's the old story of when you see a duck sitting on the water and the duck looks pretty calm. Everything is going along swimmingly, for no pun intended. But underneath the water, the duck's feet are going 1,000,000 miles an hour and the duck's just paddling and paddling. That's kind of what's going on here. We have groups of chefs who no longer need what we're doing. We have everything growing. We have a packing room that's been taught to pack things a certain way for chefs. We have a sales team that's used to talking to chefs. And now we're going to talk to the home market. Now we have to figure out how to get this product out to the home market. Our marketing team has done an amazing job switching over the website. Now the website is all about home delivery. We've had to change, how we pack things. Small packages for chefs don't work. If you're at home, you don't care about flowers or microgreens, so we've had to change that. If you can go to the next slide. Everything on there is about home delivery. It's about teaching home cooks how to use our stuff. And then something really big happened a couple weeks ago. Chef Thomas Keller, who I showed you at the Bocuse thing, who has the French Laundry in Yountville, and also has a restaurant in New York City called Per Se. He got concerned because he has these relationships with chefs or with farmers. And one of the farmers he works with, obviously, is us. One of them is a rancher in Pennsylvania who has some of the best lamb in the world, purebred lambs in Elysian Fields. And he has a woman who makes all of his butter in Vermont. And he got us on the phone and said, I would like to promote what you're doing. Let's get together and figure out how we can do it. Well, we launched something called Provisions, and that was on the last site, or in the last slide. So Chef Keller, 2 weeks ago, did an Instagram post, and he's got, as you can see, a lot more followers than we do. He's got 551,000 followers. And the thing went viral. You can go to the next slide. And we launched the Chef Keller Provision Pack. In the box, you get enough food for 2 people or 4 people of our products. His cut of lamb was lamb leg, and some of the butter from Diane St. Clair in Vermont. He also recruited 4 other chefs, Daniel Balud, Chef Gavin Kaysen in Minneapolis, Timothy Hollingsworth, he's out in California, and Corey Chow, who is a chef at Per Se, to, for the next 4 weeks, launch the same kind of provision packs and show these meals. Here's how you can cook these products at home. You can go to the next slide. There's Kaysen's, his launched this week, and it's fun because they've got a little competition who can sell more. But we had to find a way to work on all those things. At the same time, you can go back when I don't want to see that just yet. At the same time, corporate giving has really taken off. We have people saying, I have all my employees at home, or I have clients, and I'd like to give them boxes. That has really taken off. It's not talking to chefs, but and all of this has happened basically because the people we started these partnerships are willing to share and willing to talk about it and willing to say, hey, how can we help? And it's been really heartwarming. We don't know what if you designed, we're going to go into the home market, what could we do? You would think it'd be really neat if we could get Thomas Keller, but probably no way that's going to happen. Oh my, lo and behold, Thomas Keller said, what can I do to support you? And chefs all over the country are doing this and coming and going to our website or going to our Instagram and Facebook page and talking about, hey, look for chefs. And at the same time, I think it's important that we should, all of us, take a look at small farms. It's not just us. There are a lot of small farms right now who can really be a supplier. Find those people who are doing that locally. And we're trying to also, that whole idea that, you know, as there are disruptions in the food, you know, in the food infrastructure, smaller farms, I think, are going to be able to step in and help you out. And there's a Tejo Farms down in Loudonville, and there's some other ones who, these guys are normally selling to restaurants, and right now they need a place for their product to go to. So now we have, you can go to the next slide. Now we have to figure out, and like you guys said, when will fine dining restaurants open up? I have guessed about 5 times, and I've been wrong 5 times. Senator, if you have any knowledge, we are guessing because we have products that take 50 days to grow, 30 days to grow, 16 days to grow, 7 days to grow, and to have those ready for our restaurants is going to be a tough call. But we also now have another channel that we never had, and it's not going to go back to normal. We now have 2 audiences. When will the restaurants reopen? Who knows? How many will open? How many will we lose? Who knows? How can we serve both audiences? I don't think we're going to walk away from what we're doing now. When this is all done, our business will be still the Chef's Garden. We'll still do what we did for chefs, but I think we're going to forever be changed to working with home cooks, and it's been really successful. The feedback we've got, I wish I could post the emails. People saying this is beautiful. I've never received product like this before. These are the best tasting greens I've ever had. Oh my God, I didn't like kale until I tasted your kale. And a lot of that's because we're harvesting it today. I'm packing it up and you're getting it tomorrow. It hasn't sat on shelves. The shelf life is in your shelf, not on our shelves. And granted, it's beautiful, snowy Ohio right now, but we're real close to having asparagus and squash and baby squash and all these other things. And I can't wait for people to taste like what asparagus tastes like that didn't come from Peru or China or somewhere else. The freshness of an asparagus that you're going to get at home now that we used to just grow for restaurants. And it's white and purple and green and everything from jumbo to pencil size. And we are struggling like heck to figure out what internal changes do we need to make. What does our team look like? Do we need a new calling center? All of those things. Right now, we're all wearing about 16 hats, but you know, this world is going to change. It already has changed, and the new normal is the new normal. If you go to the last slide, Abby. So if you want to keep up on what we're doing, we're good at making it look easy, as you said. Our Instagram team has really switched everything over on Facebook. Follow us at the Chef's Garden, Farmer Lee Jones at the Culinary Vegetable Institute. And if you want to order our product, go to our website. And believe it or not, we put the 800 number right on there. If we're getting a lot of calls, and mom, sorry if anybody knows my mom. What's nice about calling a chef knows in about 3 seconds what he wants, and he tells you everything. And then you get my mother, I love her to death. She's almost 80, who calls me and says, I was thinking of getting squash. Can you tell me about your squash? And 20 minutes later, I've told her all about the squash. I maybe can sell her 2 pieces of squash. But right now, we have time. Time is a resource. We are answering every phone call. We have time to talk to anybody. We'll help you through the website. We're trying to make the website easier to use. So, you know, if by all means call in, and I've got a team here happy to talk to people. I'll give it back to you, Abby. If anybody has any questions, any comments, I'm open.
Awesome. Yeah, to all of our participants, please chat in what questions you have for Mike. We do have one here wondering how big your operation is, how many staff you have.
When we have our team here now, that's the other thing. We have a team that comes in, our harvest crew from Mexico, and everything's shut down. But when we have everybody here, we're about 170 families that are relying on this income. 170 people are worked here, from the growers, from the greenhouse growers, from marketing and sales, and the packing room, and the guys driving the trucks, you know, driving the product. Most everything we do goes on FedEx, but we do drive into Cleveland, and accounting. But 170 families rely on us to try to keep everything going.
Thank you. And a couple others. How can you tell us about shipping, how far it goes, whether there's a shipping fee?
Chefs paid shipping, but you know, the Amazon model has kind of killed that. So we've worked, but then again, Amazon gets that, you know, what, $109, you know, so
yeah,
shipping really free from Amazon. But we've taken shipping off. The boxes on our website will ship. There's no charge for the shipping. The price you see is what you get. Boxes right now are the best of what we have. Like I said, we'll be really excited in a couple weeks to be adding more things to that. And we had a pickup program here. Having people come onto the farm and pick things up is something we decided to stop, instead of, you know, people walking into our packing room with the masks and so forth.
yeah.
So we'll ship it to you. FedEx overnight. I mean, we've done like, hey, this is on your way home. Do you want to put it on their doorstep? I mean, if it's in Huron or something like that. But the shipping overnight, and there is no charge for it. You know, we ship as far as Maine to California, and Naples, Florida to Chicago, and even international. But for the home market, it's just the contiguous United States.
Very good. And tell us a little bit about the growing method. We had someone ask if you are a soil operation or hydroponic, and
we are soil.
No impacted you today.
Yeah. Well, if you drive by on Huron Avery Road, you'll see all manner of greenhouses. You'll see really big greenhouses. You'll see small ones. You'll see just hoop houses over top of the spinach in the fields. Everything's grown in soil. We're not organic, but we grow sustainably. We don't use harsh chemicals, but we are not certified organic. It's regenerative farming. It's about the way we treat the soil. We really spend a lot of time on cover crops and rotating what we grow, where we grow it. We don't put the same product or same crop on the same land 2 years in a row. And I won't go into all of that. If you want to know about that, Lee's brother Bobby would be great to tell you about all those things.
I have been privileged to do a tour a few times with Bobby, and his adage that I always remember is what's new is old, and that most of your operation spends a lot of time going to good old-fashioned farming, and you can visibly see the authenticity of what you're eating when you're on the farm.
It is, you know, Lee's father likes to say, we're trying to get as good as the growers were 100 years ago when they didn't have all these synthetic things to add to the fields, when they had to grow differently than what we grow now. So we're trying to get as good as the people were 100 years ago. But everything is grown in soil, even in the greenhouses. You know, the microgreens are not hydroponic, they're grown in soil.
Very good. And Mike, maybe one last question for you. We had someone ask whether the Chef's Garden participates in any food relief efforts locally, and I'm remembering a few things from the tour that I know you do, but tell us.
We do. Second Harvest, we give them a lot of, when you go to our packing room, I might have a perfectly good yellow squash that you and I would eat, but maybe a chef doesn't want that. Maybe it grew out of size. Maybe a carrot wrapped around another one and it's still grown in the same soil. It's grown, I mean, it's given just as much love as every other carrot, but it's got a weird shape. But it's perfectly good for me. And as a matter of fact, we're all allowed to go through the discards on here on the team. But we put together something for Second Harvest in Erie County, in Lorain County, even in Cleveland. And we support anywhere that we can that we can be a help. We have a pick day in the fall, and we've allowed Second Harvest teams to come here and pick product that we're long on. There's actually some soup kitchens in other parts of the country that when we have more product than what we can use, that we ship to them.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. I'm actually going to pass it to Sarah to wrap up from your comments and from our team, but thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike. So what I'm going to do is just summarize what I heard from Mike, but if you'll bear with me in my 2 minutes, I have a teaser at the end. So my 2-minute summary and just kind of why we wanted to share the Chef's Garden story today, so that you all of our businesses, our local and regional businesses can try to do what they've done. I don't mean grow vegetables and ship them direct to consumer, but I mean find that balance that they've found where they're kind of relying on their foundation of their customers and their values, listening to their customers, but then shifting their product offerings and their channels, being able to continue doing what they've always done, which is ask and find out from their customers what they need and then meet that need in a unique way. So that's how we're all going to be able to survive and hopefully return to thrive at this time. So what our office is working on, and you'll hear from us next week when we launch it, is a small business innovation grant, where if you can answer that question, what innovation or strategic pivot are you making to survive or thrive? And you don't have to have 170 employees like the Chef's Garden does. You can have one, but if you're making an innovation or strategic pivots to continue to meet those needs for your customers, you will be eligible for this small business innovation grant. So it's not a huge program. We're not the federal government. We're relying on local foundations. But please, if you're not on our email list, get in touch with Abby or I, so we can answer that question together with you. That's all from me. Thank you, Abby and Mike and everyone.
All right, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
One more thanks to Mike, Senator Gavarone, and Abby Schwanger for your time today, and thanks to all of you for listening. We will follow up with some of the resources discussed today via email, but keep your questions, comments, and feedback coming to all of your local business partners. And with that, the sign off I want to use today, I'm going to borrow from Mary Lou Sutsko from Main Street Vermilion. She always signs her emails with stay healthy, stay safe, stay optimistic, and I love that phrase. So that's what I'll wish to all of you today. Thanks again.
Thanks.